the stillness of a moonlit night, a whisper of wind carried a chilling secret through the fields of Maplewood. An ancient map, long forgotten, revealed a pattern too precise, too deliberate to be mere coincidence. As dawn broke, the townsfolk awoke to find a new formation etched into the soil, its geometry hauntingly familiar yet eerily foreign. Every blade of grass bent in unison, as if bowing to an unseen force that had returned under the cover of darkness. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, leaving them with a sense of being watched, of something awakening once more. What had transpired in the hours when the world was asleep? The answers seemed just beyond reach, cloaked in a veil of cosmic tension and earthly dread. With each heartbeat, curiosity intertwined with fear, drawing them deeper into the enigma that lay sprawled across their fields. What miracle or nightmare had unfolded while they dreamt? The stillness of the night wrapped around Maplewood like a thick, suffocating blanket, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow across the vast expanse of fields that stretched endlessly, bordered by dense woods and a winding dirt road that led to the heart of the small town. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of damp soil and the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers that lingered from the day. It was a night that seemed ordinary at first glance, yet something felt undeniably off, as if the universe held its breath, waiting for some unseen event to unfold. In the distance, the old barn creaked, its weathered wood whispering secrets of years gone by. The townsfolk had long since retreated into their homes, wrapped in the comfort of sleep, blissfully unaware of the strange phenomena that would soon disrupt their tranquil lives. The solitary light from a farmhouse flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls, creating a sense of unease that permeated the darkness. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying a chilling resonance that seemed to resonate with the very core of the earth, sending shivers down the spines of the animals huddled in their pens. They stirred, their instincts alerting them to a presence just beyond the veil of the ordinary. As the night deepened, an unsettling silence enveloped the fields, a silence so profound it felt heavy. Then came the sound, an almost imperceptible hum that vibrated through the air, low and rhythmic, like the beating of a distant heart. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying, drawing the ear while simultaneously instilling a sense of dread. The sound seemed to pulse with the energy of the land, resonating with a frequency that made the hair on the back of one's neck stand on end. It was as if the fields themselves were alive, stirring from an ancient slumber, whispering tales of forgotten days and buried secrets. And then, as if conjured by the very essence of the night, a flicker of light appeared at the edge of the fields. It was faint at first, a mere glimmer that flickered like a candle in the wind. The light danced erratically, casting fleeting shadows that twisted and turned, creating patterns that were both familiar and foreign. Those who dared to glance out their windows felt an inexplicable pull, a magnetic force that urged them to venture outside, to seek the source of the otherworldly glow. It was a call to the curious, to the brave, and to those unwittingly entangled in the web of cosmic mystery that had begun to weave itself around Maplewood. In the quiet of the night, the wind shifted again, and with it came a sense of urgency, as if nature itself was warning them. The animals, once restless, fell eerily silent, their instincts screaming at them to flee. The air grew thick with tension, and the world seemed to hold its breath, each moment stretching into eternity. Something was coming, something that had not been invited, yet felt unnervingly familiar. It was as if the fields were a canvas, and the artist was returning to complete a masterpiece left unfinished. As dawn approached, the whispers of the night faded, leaving behind an unsettling calm. The first light of morning crept across the horizon, spilling warm hues of orange and pink over the land, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out, searching for answers. The townsfolk awoke, blinking against the light, unaware of the revelation that awaited them just beyond their front doors. It was the formation, the geometric pattern that had appeared overnight, a hauntingly perfect design etched into the very soil of their fields. Curiosity mixed with apprehension as they gathered, drawn to the anomaly that now dominated the landscape. The air was still, the usual sounds of morning muted, as if nature itself was holding its breath in anticipation. Every blade of grass bent in unison, bowing to an unseen force that had returned under the cover of darkness. The formation was both beautiful and disconcerting, its intricate geometry evoking a sense of ancient knowledge that lay just out of reach. It was as if someone, or something, had returned to finish what had been started long ago, and the townsfolk were left to grapple with the implications of what had transpired while they slept. A chill ran down the spine of those who approached, the sensation of being watched creeping over them like a cold mist. The hairs on their arms stood on end, and an overwhelming sense of dread settled over the gathering crowd. What miracle or nightmare had unfolded while they dreamt? Each heartbeat echoed the question, intertwining fear with an insatiable hunger for answers. The formation seemed to pulse with energy, resonating with the very earth beneath their feet, and the air crackled with a tension that hinted at a deeper connection to the cosmos. As they stood before the enigmatic design, the townsfolk exchanged uneasy glances, their thoughts racing, each mind grappling with the weight of the unknown. This was not just a crop circle, it was a message, a calling, a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives. And deep within, the nagging feeling persisted. Something or someone had returned to Maplewood, and the answers they sought were woven into the very fabric of the earth, waiting to be uncovered. The night had surrendered its secrets to dawn, but the air hung heavy with a palpable tension that seemed to cling to the very fabric of Maplewood. As the townsfolk gathered around the formation, the landscape transformed into an eerie tableau where the beauty of the geometric pattern clashed violently with the unease etched on their faces. The sun rose slowly, casting long shadows that danced across the meticulously arranged crops. Yet the light felt foreign, as if it illuminated not just the fields, but a deeper, darker truth lurking in the corners of their minds. The silence was overwhelming, an oppressive blanket that smothered even the faintest rustle of leaves. The usual symphony of morning, chirping birds, rustling critters, the distant moo of cows, had fallen silent. Instead, a profound stillness enveloped the area, and the townsfolk felt as if they had stepped into a realm untouched by time. It was a world where the mundane laws of nature no longer applied, where the very air thrummed with an unexplained energy that made the skin tingle and the heart race. As they approached the formation, the scent of damp earth mixed with an inexplicable metallic tang that hung in the air, reminiscent of a storm just before it broke. The ground beneath their feet felt alive, vibrating subtly, as if it were breathing, pulsating with some hidden rhythm that resonated deep within their bones. The intricate design sprawled before them, circular patterns intertwined with sharp angles, spirals leading into the unknown. The geometry was hypnotic, drawing their eyes in, forcing them to confront the inexplicable nature of its existence. A sudden flurry of movement broke the spell, as a gust of wind swept through the crowd, stirring the hair on their arms and sending shivers down their spines. The wind carried with it a distant, almost imperceptible hum, like the reverberation of a tuning fork struck in the void. It seemed to whisper secrets just beyond comprehension, urging them to listen, to understand. But what could they understand? The formation was not merely a visual spectacle. It was a challenge, An invitation to delve into the unknown, to confront whatever had manifested in the night while they lay unsuspecting in their beds. "Did you see that?" whispered Tommy, wide-eyed, his voice trembling as he clutched his mother's sleeve. "It's like the ground is alive." His mother, a woman of practical sensibilities, shook her head, trying to mask her own rising fear. "It's just a trick of the light, honey. Nothing to worry about." Yet her weak smile faltered as she glanced at the crowd, their faces a mix of wonder and dread, each one echoing the unspoken fears that danced in the air. Old Mrs. Jenkins, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and horror, clutched her rosary, murmuring prayers under her breath. "Lord, protect us," she repeated, her voice barely rising above the eerie hum that surrounded them. "Do you think it's a sign?" asked Jacob, a local farmer, his brow furrowed. "Maybe we should warn others. This isn't right." "Signs? What signs?" snapped Martha, a young woman who had always been skeptical of the town's superstitions. "It's just a field, a bunch of crops knocked down. We need to get back to our lives." But as her voice rang out, a sudden crackling noise echoed from the fields, silencing her. The ground beneath them seemed to shimmer, and for a heartbeat, it felt as though the very earth was alive, pulsing with anticipation. The hairs on the back of their necks stood at attention as a low, ominous sound resonated from the depths of the field, a sound that was not of this world. It was a vibration, a thrumming that seemed to echo in their chests, a reminder that they were not alone in their awe and fear. "What was that?" whispered a teenage boy, eyes darting around as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "I don't know, but we should get out of here," came a voice from the back of the group, panic creeping in. The sensation of being watched intensified, and the townsfolk instinctively huddled closer together, seeking comfort in shared apprehension. Suddenly, a flash of light flickered across the formation, and gasps erupted from the crowd. "Did you see it?" shouted a man, pointing into the distance. "There it was again." It was brief, more a trick of the eye than a tangible presence, but it ignited a spark of panic. Some began to back away, their instincts screaming for them to flee, while others stood frozen, rooted to the spot, drawn inexplicably closer to the mystery that lay before them. It was a magnetic pull, one that seemed to whisper promises of answers to those brave enough to confront their fears. What if it's from the sky? Tommy's innocent question hung in the air like a heavy cloud, amplifying the fear that simmered just beneath the surface. "Don't say that," his mother replied sharply, her voice trembling as she gripped his hand tighter. "It's just a natural phenomenon." But even as she spoke, the oppressive weight of their gathering dread clawed at her throat. The very air crackled with the weight of unspoken truths, and they stood on the precipice of revelation, teetering between curiosity and dread. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting harsh light on the intricate geometry, the townsfolk felt the oppressive weight of their gathering dread. Each moment stretched into eternity, and with every heartbeat, the sense that they were being observed deepened. It was a feeling that transcended the physical. It seeped into their bones, igniting a primal instinct to flee from the unknown. But where could they run? The fields, once familiar and safe, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets that held them captive. With every passing minute, the formation loomed larger in their collective consciousness, a symbol of everything they had yet to understand. And as they stood there, the sun shining down on the haunting pattern, the haunting thought echoed in their minds. Perhaps this was not simply a phenomenon to be explained, but an experience that would alter the very fabric of their lives forever. The air had thickened, an invisible fog wrapping around the townsfolk as they stood transfixed by the formation. The sun, once a comforting presence, now felt like a spotlight illuminating their fears. Shadows danced erratically, and the harsh light created stark contrasts. where the intricate geometry of the crop circles seemed to pulsate with life, as if the very soil breathed in tandem with their collective uncertainty. Whispers of doubt and wonder intertwined, creating an atmosphere heavy with tension. As the minutes dragged on, the silence grew more profound, amplifying the slightest rustle of the wind through the fields. The distant call of a crow punctuated the stillness, its call echoing like a judgment in the ears of those who dared to listen. It was a reminder that they were not alone, that the world outside their immediate fears still existed, yet it felt so far removed from the reality they were now facing. Every heartbeat echoed in their chests, a constant reminder of their own vulnerability. "Did you hear that?" someone whispered, the words barely escaping their lips. It was a sound like no other, a low hum that seemed to resonate from deep within the earth. It wasn't a sound that belonged in nature, and yet it filled the space around them, vibrating in their bones. The hum felt familiar yet alien, as if the land itself was speaking a language they had forgotten how to understand. It stirred something primal within them, a warning that resonated through their very beings. Tommy's small fingers tightened around his mother's hand, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His innocence contrasted sharply with the growing unease of the adults surrounding him. His mother, however, was lost in her thoughts, her mind racing through the possibilities. Was it truly a natural phenomenon, or was it something far more sinister? The wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest hint of something metallic, a scent that was both unsettling and intriguing. It swirled around them like a ghost, weaving through the crowd, eliciting shivers that danced along their spines. "It smells strange," one woman remarked, her voice quivering. "Like iron. Iron. The very essence of conflict, of battles fought and lost. A reminder that the earth beneath their feet had witnessed more than just the seasons' change. It had borne witness to human history, to the weight of their ancestors' fears and dreams. And now that history seemed to bleed back into the present, intertwining with the mystery that lay before them. As they stood there, the formation seemed to morph under their gaze. What had once appeared as simple geometric shapes now held an ominous significance. The circles, perfectly drawn, felt like the eyes of a predator, observing them with an intelligence that was both unsettling and captivating. The patterns twisted in their minds, becoming symbols of an unknown truth that beckoned them to decipher its meaning. Suddenly, a flicker of light danced along the edges of the formation, barely perceptible yet undeniable. A collective gasp escaped the crowd, eyes widening as they strained to catch a glimpse of this elusive phenomenon. The light shimmered, a fleeting apparition that seemed to tease their senses, igniting a spark of hope and fear in equal measure. "There! Did you see that?" someone shouted, pointing, fingers trembling in anticipation. But the moment passed as swiftly as it had come, leaving only the lingering question in its wake. What had they just witnessed? Was it an illusion, a trick of the mind, or was it a glimpse into something far beyond their comprehension? Each person stood on the precipice of understanding, grappling with their own interpretations of the event that seemed to defy logic. The atmosphere thickened as they exchanged nervous glances, the bond between them shifting from mere neighbors to reluctant witnesses of something monumental. The hum, the light, the whispers of the wind. All of it coalesced into an unsettling tapestry of mystery that wrapped around them like a shroud. With every passing moment, the feeling of being observed intensified, a sensation that gnawed at their very souls, urging them to question their reality. "Maybe we should leave," a voice suggested, breaking the spell that had held them captive, but the words fell flat, echoing in the air like a distant thunder. Deep down, they all knew that leaving would not erase the weight of what they had experienced. The formation would remain, etched into the landscape, a permanent reminder of the night that had shifted their understanding of the world. As the sun continued its ascent, the shadows began to recede, yet the tension remained, palpable and suffocating. They had crossed a threshold into the unknown, and whatever lay ahead, they would have to face together. But would they emerge changed? Or would the mystery consume them, leaving only echoes of their former selves in the wake of the inexplicable? As they stood there, in the heart of the fields, the reality of their isolation settled upon them. No one would believe them if they turned to run, and yet the very air around them seemed to whisper secrets yet untold. The formation loomed larger than life, a testament to the unknown that lingered just beyond the edges of their understanding. And with that realization came a chilling truth. Some mysteries were never meant to be solved, only endured. The night stretched on, and as the last remnants of twilight faded, an oppressive darkness enveloped the fields. The air grew thick with an electric tension, wrapping around the witnesses like a heavy fog, smothering any words that might have broken the silence. They stood there, their feet rooted in the damp earth, each pulse of their hearts echoing the rhythmic thrum of the unknown that pulsed just beneath the surface of the mundane. In the distance, a low hum began to rise, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very ground they stood on, sending chills up their spines. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. Neither the croak of a frog nor the rustle of leaves, but something more profound, an otherworldly resonance that spoke of ancient truths and cosmic happenings. The sound seemed to twist and weave around them, drawing closer, yet remaining just out of reach, as if it was a living entity, curious about its audience. Glancing around, they noticed the way the shadows danced along the edges of the field, flickering in the corners of their vision. The barn, usually a comforting silhouette against the night sky, now appeared menacing, its wooden beams groaning under the weight of secrets long buried. A sudden gust of wind swept through, carrying with it a scent both metallic and sweet, reminiscent of ozone after a storm, filling their lungs with an unsettling reminder of the strangeness that had just unfolded. Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been pulled taut, vibrating with an energy that was palpable. The animals, usually docile and accustomed to the rhythms of the night, had fallen silent, their instincts alerting them to something amiss. A barn owl, perched high on a fence post, turned its head sharply, its golden eyes wide with an intelligence that felt almost human. The tension was a living thing, wrapping around their throats, stifling any urge to speak, to rationalize the events that had transpired. As they hesitated, caught in the web of their own trepidation, the formation in the field called to them, a geometric puzzle begging to be understood. The circles, perfectly symmetrical, impossibly intricate, lay sprawled across the ground in a way that defied the laws of nature. Each curve and angle seemed to pulse softly, glowing faintly, as if it held within it a heartbeat of its own. They could feel the pull of the design, an urge to step closer, to decipher its meaning, yet the fear of what might lie ahead held them in place. Then came the sound again, sharper this time, a metallic clang that seemed to reverberate from the very air around them. It echoed through the night, causing their hearts to race and their skin to prickle. The sound seemed to mingle with the low hum, creating a symphony of uncertainty that resonated deep within their chests. It was a call, an invitation and a warning all at once, urging them to confront the mystery that stood before them. Suddenly, an ethereal light flickered above the formation, illuminating the edges of the crop circles with a ghostly glow. It danced and twirled, casting long shadows that twisted and curled, as if the very essence of the night was alive and writhing in response to the strange phenomenon. The witnesses could only stand in awe, a mixture of fear and wonder washing over them. What were they witnessing? Was it a natural occurrence, or was it something beyond their comprehension, a sign of forces that had been lying in wait? As they stood, entranced by the sight before them, a voice broke the silence, trembling with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "What if this is a warning?" It was Mark, the most skeptical of the group, his face pale and eyes wide. "What if we've disturbed something that was never meant to be found?" His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. The others turned to him, uncertainty etched across their faces, each wrestling with the implications of his statement. And then, as if responding to their collective unease, the lights dimmed, plunging them back into darkness. A profound silence enveloped the field, wrapping around them like a shroud. It was a silence so deep, so absolute, that it felt as if the world itself had taken a breath and held it. They could feel the weight of the moment pressing down upon them, the fear of the unknown wrapping around their hearts like a vice. Just then, a rustling sound broke through the stillness, and they all turned their heads in unison, drawn to the source of the noise. Something moved in the field, just beyond the reach of their vision. It was a fleeting shadow, a dark figure that slipped between the rows of crops, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Gasps filled the air, breaths caught in throats as they realized they were not alone. Something was watching them, lurking just outside the periphery of their understanding. The tension escalated, and they felt the boundaries of their reality begin to fray. Each heartbeat echoed like a drum, a reminder of their mortality, their vulnerability in this vast, unknown world. The formation, with its intricate patterns and glowing energies, loomed larger than life, a testament to the unfathomable mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of perception. As they stood there, paralyzed by fear and curiosity, the night stretched on, each moment thick with uncertainty. They were caught in a web of questions without answers, their minds racing to comprehend the incomprehensible. They could feel the cosmic tension in the air, a silent understanding that whatever had occurred was merely the beginning of something far more profound. And as they waited, the whispers of the wind seemed to beckon them closer, urging them to unravel the secrets that lay within the shadows, even as dread settled deep within their bones. The night was far from over, and the true nature of the mystery had yet to reveal itself. As the air grew heavier, the group found themselves ensnared in a strange amalgamation of fear and anticipation. The rustling sound, a mere whisper of movement, seemed to ripple through the very fabric of the night. Each member felt an unspoken pact form between them, a silent agreement to confront whatever lurked in the shadows, even as their instincts screamed to flee. They stood shoulder to shoulder, breaths synchronized as if in a trance, caught between the desire to delve deeper and the primal urge to escape. The moon hung high, casting silvery beams that danced across the undulating fields, illuminating the edges of the peculiar formation they had stumbled upon. It was not just a circle. It was a geometric tapestry woven into the earth, each line and curve seeming to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The patterns were impossibly precise, defying logic and reason, and yet they resonated with a haunting beauty that compelled them to step closer. The air crackled with an electric charge, a palpable tension that made their skin prickle, as if the very atmosphere was alive. Then came the sounds, soft, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder as they strained to listen. It was a series of low, throbbing vibrations, akin to a heartbeat echoing through the ground beneath their feet. The sound, both unsettling and mesmerizing, seemed to emanate from the formation itself, as though it was alive, breathing in rhythm with their own anxiety. They exchanged nervous glances, each face reflecting a mixture of awe and terror, as the vibrations seeped into their bones, leaving them feeling both weightless and anchored in place. "Did you hear that?" whispered Sarah, her voice barely more than a breath. The question hung in the air, charged with the weight of their collective fear. An almost imperceptible nod was all she received in response. And yet, the silence that followed felt deafening, wrapping around them like a thick fog, isolating them from the rest of the world. The sensation of being watched intensified, creeping over them like a cold sweat. It was as if the very shadows were sentient, their dark tendrils reaching out to grasp at the edges of their consciousness. They felt it in the pit of their stomachs, a gut-wrenching awareness that something unseen was observing their every move, gauging their reactions, reveling in their fear. The animals, previously restless, had now fallen eerily silent, as if they too recognized the presence that lingered just beyond the veil of perception. Suddenly, a sharp crack pierced the night, a sound that was both foreign and familiar, reverberating through the trees that bordered the field. It was followed by a deep rumble, like thunder rolling across the horizon, yet the sky was devoid of clouds. The earth seemed to tremble in response, and a collective shudder ran through the group. They instinctively huddled closer together, each seeking comfort from the proximity of the others. But the fear was palpable. It hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "Maybe it's just the wind," Mark suggested, his voice trembling slightly as he tried to mask the unease that laced his words. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. The wind had a way of communicating, a whispering voice that seemed to carry messages from far beyond their understanding. They had lived their entire lives in this rural expanse, familiar with its sounds, its rhythms, yet tonight felt different. Tonight, it felt as if nature herself held her breath, waiting for something extraordinary to unfold. Just then, a shimmering light flickered at the edge of the formation, catching their attention like a moth to a flame. It was subtle at first, a glimmer that danced along the perimeter of the crop circle, teasing their eyes with its brilliance. The light pulsed in sync with the vibrations, a heartbeat that echoed the rhythm of their racing hearts. Each pulse seemed to beckon them closer, to surrender to the unknown and embrace the enigma that lay before them. "Should we go?" whispered Sarah again, her eyes wide with both fear and fascination. It was a question that hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their decision. They knew deep down that crossing the threshold into the formation would mean venturing into the heart of the mystery, plunging into the depths of the unknown, where answers may lead to more questions. A chilling gust of wind swept through the field, sending shivers down their spines and rustling the crops in a way that felt almost deliberate. The shadows elongated, twisting and contorting in the moonlight, and for a brief moment they felt as if the very ground beneath them was calling out, urging them to step forward, to breach the boundary between the known and the unknowable. But still, they hesitated. The fear of the unseen loomed large, a specter that loitered just beyond their periphery, teasing them with its presence. Each of them wrestled with their thoughts, torn between the thrill of discovery and the instinct to survive. The tension was palpable, a living entity that wrapped around them, squeezing tighter with every passing moment. And just as they stood on the precipice of decision, a low, resonant hum thrummed through the air, vibrating through their very souls. It was a sound that transcended language, a call that reverberated deep within them, igniting a spark of curiosity that clashed violently with the growing dread. As if on cue, the shimmering light intensified, casting long shadows that danced across the fields, and for the first time that night they began to understand. Whatever they were facing was not merely a phenomenon of nature, but something far more complex, something that would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. The night was alive with possibilities, but as they stood frozen in that moment, the fear clawed at them, whispering that perhaps some mysteries were never meant to be solved. The line between reality and the surreal began to blur, and with each heartbeat, they felt the pull of the unknown drawing them closer to the edge of a revelation that could shatter everything they thought they knew. As dawn broke, the world outside was transformed. The golden light of the sun slashed through the remnants of the night, illuminating the field where the inexplicable formation had emerged. The air was thick with a strange metallic scent, lingering like an unshakable memory. The group stood at the edge of the field, their hearts pounding as they gazed at the intricate design sprawled before them. An impossible geometric pattern etched into the earth, a language that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. The formation was unlike anything they had ever seen. Each circle, each line bent with an otherworldly precision. The crops surrounding it stood tall, yet the plants within the formation were perfectly flattened, as if pressed by an unseen force. They were not broken or damaged, simply bent, following the contours of this unknown script. The sun's rays glinted off the dew, casting shimmering reflections that danced like tiny stars across the pattern, further heightening the surreal atmosphere. Their senses heightened. They approached the formation with a combination of awe and trepidation. The whispers of the night still echoed in their minds, the low hum that had vibrated through their chests, the unsettling feeling of being watched. It was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted overnight, leaving them standing in the wake of something ancient and powerful. Each step forward was weighted with the fear of what they might find, but also with the tantalizing promise of revelation. The group shared hushed, anxious murmurs, exchanging theories that barely scratched the surface of the mystery. "It could be a prank," someone suggested, but the conviction in their voice faltered as they studied the flawless circles. "A natural phenomenon?" another offered. But the very idea felt laughable in the face of the undeniable artistry before them. The designs felt intentional, almost sentient, and the air thrummed with unspoken significance. Suddenly, a soft rustle broke the fragile silence, causing them to freeze in place. A small deer, its coat glossy and shimmering in the morning light, emerged from the edge of the woods. It paused at the boundary of the formation, its large eyes wide with an uncharacteristic alertness. The animal sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, and then recoiled, stepping back as if in fear. It was an instinctive response, one that resonated deeply with the group. They too felt the weight of an unseen presence, a silent warning urging them to retreat. As the deer bounded away, an unsettling stillness enveloped the field. The wind, once a gentle caress, now held an ominous chill. The sun, though bright, cast long shadows that seemed to stretch towards them, fingers of darkness reaching out across the geometry of the formation. It was as if the day fought against the very essence of the night, a cosmic clash that left the atmosphere taut with tension. Rattled, they turned their attention back to the formation, their curiosity igniting once more. Patterns began to emerge within the chaos, subtle swirls and lines that seemed to tell a story, perhaps even a warning. One of them knelt down, tracing his fingers along the perfectly bent stalks, feeling the cool earth beneath. It was as if the ground was alive, thrumming with energy that pulsed beneath their fingertips. In that moment, a deep rumble echoed from the horizon, sending vibrations through the soil and into their bones. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with the very flow of the earth, a reminder of the forces at play just beyond their understanding. They exchanged glances, the thrill of discovery mingling with a profound sense of dread. "I think we need to call someone," another suggested, voice trembling slightly. "This isn't normal." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of fear and disbelief, yet deep down they all knew that reporting this would only invite scrutiny and perhaps even danger into their lives. The group was caught in a web of conflicting emotions, the allure of uncovering the truth intertwined with the instinct to flee from the unknown. They felt as if they were standing on the precipice of something monumental, a revelation that could either illuminate or obliterate their understanding of reality. As they stood in that field, the sun rising higher, they were acutely aware of the shift in the atmosphere. The air grew thicker, the metallic scent intensifying, almost intoxicating. It was as if the very ground beneath them was alive with secrets, whispering tales of cosmic wonders and horrors alike. Just then, a glimmer caught their eyes. Amidst the formation, a small object reflected the sunlight, drawing their attention like a magnet. It was partially buried within the earth, its shape vague and indistinct. With a shared glance, they moved closer, curiosity overpowering their fear. As they approached, the object revealed itself. A small metallic disc, engraved with symbols that looked ancient, yet alien. The air crackled with energy, and the moment they touched it, a shockwave rippled through the field, sending them staggering back. The sound of their gasps mingled with the sudden rush of wind, blurring their senses and heightening the sense of impending revelation. Whatever had transpired was far from over. The sensation of being watched returned with a vengeance, and they felt it, a presence lurking just beyond their vision, observing, waiting. And in that moment they understood. They had crossed a threshold, and whatever lay ahead would demand a reckoning with the mysteries of the universe, a confrontation with the very essence of fear and wonder. With hearts racing and minds racing, they stood on the brink, knowing that every decision from this point onward would echo in the silence of eternity. As the group gathered around the metallic disc, the air seemed to pulsate with an energy that was both foreign and familiar, as if the very fabric of reality had been momentarily tugged at the seams. They could feel their hearts thudding against their rib cages, a primal rhythm that echoed the mounting tension that enveloped them. The sunlight, once a comforting warmth, now felt harsh and intrusive, illuminating every crevice of uncertainty etched into their faces. The disc itself was an enigma. Its surface smooth and cold to the touch, yet it radiated a warmth that seeped into their fingertips. The symbols carved into it glimmered with an ethereal glow, shifting subtly as if they were alive, breathing secrets of an age long forgotten. Each line and curve whispered to them ancient stories of civilizations that perhaps had once stood where they now stood, gazing up at the same stars, burdened with the same questions. A low hum began to resonate in the air, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath them. It was a sound that defied description, a blend of mechanical whirring and organic pulsations, mingling with the distant rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of the wind. The harmony of nature and mystery created a symphony that both entranced and terrified them. As the vibrations coursed through their bodies, they felt the weight of disbelief begin to crack, giving way to a desperate yearning for understanding. "Do you hear that?" one of them whispered, breaking the silence that had enveloped them like a shroud. The others nodded, their eyes wide, each person grappling with a cocktail of fear and fascination. It was as if they were standing at the edge of a vast chasm, peering into the unknown, the darkness beckoning them closer. Suddenly the wind picked up, swirling around them with an urgency that felt almost alive. The grasses flattened and then sprang back, as if the earth itself was reacting to their presence. The rhythmic thumping of their hearts was joined by a new sound, a soft crackling that echoed like distant thunder. It seemed to come from the very fabric of the field, resonating with the energy of the disc, intertwining their fate with something far beyond their comprehension. In that moment, the sensation of being watched intensified, prickling at the back of their necks. They turned in unison, scanning the periphery of the field, their eyes darting to the shadows cast by the trees lining the horizon. The world felt larger, and yet they were acutely aware of how isolated they were in that expanse of farmland. The birds had fallen silent, the usual chirping of crickets replaced by an oppressive stillness. It was as if nature itself had paused, holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. As they refocused on the disc, a flicker of movement caught their attention. The engraved symbols seemed to pulse in time with their racing hearts, and for a fleeting moment they thought they saw a figure cloaked in light. emerging from the shadows of the trees. Panic surged through them, a visceral fear that twisted their stomachs and sent them stumbling backward. But when they blinked, the figure was gone, leaving behind only the lingering chill of doubt. They turned back to the disk, their resolve wavering. What had they unearthed? A relic of an advanced civilization, or perhaps a beacon signaling their presence? The question spiraled in their minds, creating an unbearable tension that threatened to unravel them. They could feel the air thickening, pressing down on them as if demanding a response, a choice. And yet, the fear of the unknown loomed larger than the potential for discovery. "What if we leave it?" someone suggested, the words tumbling out in a rush. "What if we just walk away? We don't have to know." But deep down, they understood that the allure of knowledge was too powerful to resist. The thrill of the mystery, the possibility of answers that could reshape their understanding of existence itself. It was intoxicating. The weight of their fear battled against the gravity of curiosity, each pulling them in opposite directions. It was then that they noticed something. A faint glow emanating from the disk, illuminating their faces with a ghostly light. The symbols began to shift and rearrange, forming patterns that felt oddly familiar yet disconcertingly alien. A whisper of sound danced through the air, a cacophony of voices that seemed to rise and fall like a distant tide, beckoning them closer, urging them to listen. What if it's a warning? Another voice broke through the tension, trembling with uncertainty. What if we're not supposed to be here? They exchanged glances, each weighing the gravity of those words. The very notion sent a shiver down their spines, reminding them that they were intruders in a realm governed by forces beyond their comprehension. But the pull of the unknown was stronger. And as they hesitated, the atmosphere shifted again, thickening with an unseen presence, as if the field itself was holding its breath, waiting for their next move. In that suspended moment, they made a choice, an unspoken agreement that bound them together in a shared fate. They would confront the unknown, embrace the mystery that lay before them. With a collective breath, they reached out once more, their hands hovering just above the disk, feeling the energy pulse beneath their fingertips, a heartbeat echoing the truth of their existence. And then, as if the universe responded to their resolve, a blinding light erupted from the disk, enveloping them in a cocoon of brilliance. The sound swallowed them whole, a symphony of chaos and clarity, the sensation of being pulled through time and space. It was as if reality itself had unfurled before them, revealing glimpses of what lay beyond the veil of human understanding. And just like that, they were no longer alone. The presence that had lingered at the edges of their perception coalesced into something tangible, a force that filled the air with whispers of ancient knowledge and fleeting shadows. They stood, suspended in the moment, their hearts racing as they faced the embodiment of their deepest fears and wildest dreams. The disk hummed with an energy that transcended their comprehension, and as they surrendered to the experience, they understood that the truth they sought was not just a revelation but a transformation. They were no longer mere witnesses to the mystery. They had become part of it, intertwined with the cosmic fabric that held the universe together. And as they stood there, bodies trembling with a mix of awe and trepidation, the sunlight began to fade, swallowed by an encroaching twilight that hinted at the darkness yet to come. The world around them shifted, the familiar contours of the field dissolving into an otherworldly landscape where possibilities were limitless and realities were malleable. In that twilight, they grasped the final truth, a revelation that would forever alter the course of their lives. They had crossed the threshold, but what awaited them on the other side remained shrouded in uncertainty. The answers they sought were not simply waiting to be discovered. They were woven into the very essence of existence itself, waiting for the brave to unravel them, and perhaps, just perhaps, for the foolish to be consumed by them. With hearts still racing, they realized they were now part of a greater narrative, a story that transcended their understanding. The weight of their fears lingered, but alongside it blossomed a glimmer of hope. A hope that in unraveling the mystery, they might find not only answers, but also a deeper connection to the cosmos that had always watched over them. A dance of light and shadow that would echo in eternity.